My name is Claire. I am 34 years old. And the night I thought was the most beautiful night of my life became the night that almost broke me completely. I need you to understand something before I begin. I am not a dramatic person. I have never been someone who seeks attention or thrives in chaos. I am the kind of woman who wakes up early to water her plants, who folds laundry while listening to soft music, who cries at commercials about dogs finding their way home. I am ordinary in the most peaceful way. And I had built an ordinary, beautiful life. That is exactly why what happened hurt so deeply. Because you don't expect a storm when the sky has been clear for years. I remember the way the candles flickered on the anniversary dinner table. Soft golden light, the smell of roses. I had picked myself that morning from the little garden behind our house. The garden Daniel built for me when we moved in. Because he knew I loved growing things. He had reserved our favorite restaurant that evening, the same one where he proposed to me 3 years ago. In the corner booth by the window, with rain falling gently outside like the sky itself was giving us its blessing. I was 7 months pregnant. My belly was round and full of life, our life. A baby girl we had already named Sophie, after Daniel's grandmother, who had passed the year before and left behind nothing but kindness and the smell of cinnamon, and a name worth carrying forward. That evening, Daniel kept looking at me the way he always did when he thought I wasn't paying attention. That quiet, grateful look, like he couldn't quite believe his own luck. He reached across the table and touched my hand and said softly, "I still can't believe I get to call you mine." I smiled so wide it almost hurt. We talked about Sophie, about the nursery we were still painting, soft yellow, because we wanted something warm and hopeful, about names for the dog we planned to get after she was born, about the vacation we would take when she turned 1. Small plans, tender plans. The kind that only exist between two people who trust each other completely. That was the last peaceful moment I would have for a very long time. Because that was the night a stranger walked through the door of that restaurant and shattered everything we had built. He was tall, well-dressed in the way that careful, calculated people are. Calm. The kind of calm that isn't peace but preparation. Like he had rehearsed this moment many times and was finally stepping onto the stage. He walked directly to our table without hesitation. His eyes moved past Daniel entirely and landed on me, then on my belly, then back on my face. Daniel stood up immediately. "Can I help you?" The man didn't even look at him. He looked at my stomach like it belonged to him. And then he said, loudly, clearly, in a voice that filled the entire room, "That baby is mine." The restaurant went silent. Every fork stopped moving. Every conversation died. I felt the air leave my lungs like something had reached inside my chest and pulled it out. He reached into his jacket and produced a folder. Thick, organized, he laid it on our dinner table like he was presenting evidence in a courtroom. Photographs, documents, dates circled in red, hotel records, messages that looked like mine but weren't. Things assembled so carefully that even I, the person who knew the truth, felt a cold terror crawl up my spine. Just looking at them, he said calmly, "I have proof. Ask her." And in that terrible silence, I felt Daniel look at me. Not with accusation, not yet, but with something I had never seen in his eyes before. Something fragile and cracking. Something that looked like a question he was afraid to ask out loud. Doubt. And doubt, I learned that night, is the most dangerous thing that can enter a marriage. It doesn't knock. It doesn't announce itself. It just slips in through a crack and starts quietly rearranging everything. Within the hour, Daniel's parents arrived. I don't know who called them. Perhaps the man himself. Perhaps someone at the restaurant. But they came. His mother Margaret with her sharp, assessing eyes, and his father Robert with his practiced silence that always managed to say more than words. They looked at the papers. They looked at the stranger. And then they looked at me, like I was someone they were seeing for the first time. Like 3 years of Sunday dinners and holiday, photographs and shared laughter had simply been erased. Margaret placed her hand on Daniel's arm and said, "You need to protect yourself, Daniel. And you need to protect the family name." Robert said nothing, but he nodded once, slowly, deliberately. And just like that, in the span of one dinner, one folder, one stranger's voice in the family, I had loved became a wall I was standing on the wrong side of. They wanted a paternity test. Immediately, they wanted me out of the house. until results confirmed anything. Margaret used the word dignity more than once, as if mine had never existed, as if I were not sitting right there, 7 months pregnant. Shaking so hard my water glass was rippling. I looked at Daniel. He was standing by the window. His back was to me. His hands were buried deep in his pockets. And something inside me, something I cannot fully describe even now, simply broke, not loudly, not dramatically. It broke the way old glass breaks, quietly, into very small pieces. I had loved this man through 3 years of ordinary Tuesdays, through his bad moods and my anxious nights, through the grief of 2 failed pregnancies before Sophie, through 18 months of fertility, treatments and injections and waiting rooms and hope, hanging by the thinnest possible thread. I had chosen him every single morning. And in this moment, I could not tell if he was choosing me. Sophie kicked inside me right then, hard, like she was reminding me. She was still there, still real, still mine. I picked up my bag. I stood up slowly because my body was heavy and my heart was heavier. I did not cry. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something fierce and quiet rose up inside. Me instead. The part of me that had survived. Every waiting room. Every negative test. Every loss, and it said, not here. Not for them. Not like this. I looked at the room. At the strangers watching. At Daniel's parents. At the man with his folder full of lies. And I said very quietly, very clearly, I know the truth. And the truth always finds its way home. Then I walked out into the night air and kept walking until my legs carried me to my sister, Rachel's house 4 blocks away. Before I tell you what really happened next, what Daniel discovered, what that man's true identity was, and what those documents were actually hiding, I want to stop here for just one moment. If this story is reaching something inside you, if you have ever been accused of something you didn't do, or felt the ground disappear beneath your feet while the people you loved watched, please like this video right now. Subscribe to this channel so stories like this one always find you. And drop your country in the comments below. I read every single one, and it means more to me than you know. Now let me tell you what happened after I walked away. I sat in Rachel's kitchen until nearly midnight. She made tea I didn't drink and held my hand without asking too many questions, because that is the kind of sister she is. Outside, rain had started falling, soft and steady against the window. And I thought about Sophie, about her face I hadn't seen yet but already loved completely, about how she would one day ask me about the night she was born into this chaos, and what I would tell her. I decided I would tell her the truth, all of it, because she deserved to know that her mother did not break. At 2 in the morning, my phone rang. Daniel. I stared at his name on the screen for a long time. My thumb hovered. Rachel looked at me and said nothing. And something, instinct, love, the 3 years of ordinary Tuesdays made me answer. His voice was completely different. Everything had been stripped from it. The confusion, the distance, the terrible window-staring silence. He sounded raw, hollowed out, like a man who had walked through fire and was calling from the other side. He said, Claire, please listen to me. Just listen. And I did. He told me that after I left, he did not go home with his parents. He let them leave. And then he sat alone in that restaurant booth for a long time staring at the folder the stranger had left behind. And something in him, the methodical, careful, detail-oriented man I had married, started looking more closely. Not with the eyes of a husband who doubted, but with the mind of someone who suddenly, desperately needed to find the flaw in a story that didn't feel right. He went to his office. It was nearly midnight. He unlocked his desk drawer and pulled out a file he had kept since the very beginning of our fertility journey. Every appointment record, every clinic document, every date, every signature from every doctor who had treated us through 18 months of IVF. Sophie was our miracle, conceived in a clinic, every single step documented, witnessed, signed, and sealed by medical professionals. There was not one biological possibility, not one, that any other man could be her father. The stranger's proof was fabricated. Expertly, expensively, carefully fabricated. But fabricated. Daniel called his lawyer that same night. And then he called me. And then he said the words I have carried in my heart every day since. He said, I should have stood up the moment that man walked in. I should have taken your hand and looked him in the eye and said, you have the wrong table. I should never have let doubt touch something sacred. I failed you tonight, Claire, and I am so sorry. I am so deeply sorry. I pressed the phone against my chest and breathed. And breathed. And breathed. The investigation that followed was thorough and swift. The man with the folder was a hired operative, traced back within 2 weeks to a business rival of Daniel's company. A man named Hargrove who had been watching our family for months, waiting for the right moment to destabilize. Daniel before a major corporate acquisition closed. They had researched our pregnancy, found the IVF records through a corrupt clinic employee who had since been terminated, built an elaborate fiction around dates and places and manufactured messages, and they had timed it with surgical cruelty. Our anniversary, a public restaurant, family present, emotions running high. It was not a crime of passion. It was a crime of calculation. When the truth came fully to light, presented in a courtroom, covered by local news, resulting in both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit, Daniel's mother came to our door alone, without Robert, without her armor of sharp words and family name. She stood on our porch with red eyes and shaking hands, and she said, "I failed you." I looked at papers instead of at my daughter, and I am ashamed. I looked at her for a long time. The old pain was still there. It didn't disappear because she was sorry. Wounds don't work that way. But I also understood something I had learned in those dark weeks, and that bitterness is a prison. You construct yourself using someone else's bricks. And I was finished building prisons. I opened the door wider. I said, "Guys, come in." She exhaled like she had been holding her breath for weeks. Sophie was born 6 weeks later. She came into the world furious and loud and absolutely certain of herself, like she had a schedule and the world had better keep up. Daniel was beside me the entire time. He held my hand through every contraction and did not look away once. And when they placed Sophie in his arms for the first time, this tiny, perfect, hard-won girl, I watched his face do something extraordinary. It broke open, completely. The way the sky breaks open after a long drought, not gently, not gradually, but all at once, with everything it has been holding. He looked at me over her head, and his eyes were full, and he said nothing. He didn't need to. We named her Sophie Claire, half his hope, half my strength. All of our proof that truth, patient, quiet, unhurried truth, always finds its way home. She is 14 months old now. She has Daniel's stubborn chin and my grandmother's green eyes, and an opinion about absolutely everything. She pulls herself up on the furniture and looks at me with this expression of pure, uncomplicated certainty. Like she has never doubted, for 1 second, that she is exactly where she is supposed to be. She is right. I want to leave you with the things I know now that I didn't know before that night. Truth does not need your defense, it needs your patience. Lies are fast and loud. Truth is slow and permanent. Stand still long enough and it will find you. The people who love you will sometimes fail you. And that failure does not have to be the end. What matters, truly matters, is what they choose to do when they realize they were wrong. Your worth is not defined by an accusation, not by a stranger, not by a crowd, not by a folder of fabricated papers placed on your anniversary dinner table. Protecting your peace is the highest form of strength. I walked out of that restaurant not because I gave up, but because I refused to fall apart in front of people who hadn't earned my tears. And finally, forgiveness is not a gift you give to someone else. It is a door you open for yourself. On the other side of it is space, light, room to breathe again. So I ask you now, sincerely and from the heart, have you ever faced a betrayal like this? Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do, by someone you loved, in front of people who should have protected you? Share your story in the comments. Every word you write, I will read. Because you came this far into my story, and that means something to me. Thank you for being here, truly.